I was at work one night in November, and then I felt this like hot heat e- eruption from inside and felt nauseous and felt like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen here. I feel like I'm going to fall over. My heart was just racing out of control.
Mm.
I said, if I fall over, somebody catch me, just kind of flip it. And the sports anchor looked at me and he said, are you okay? And I said, I'm actually not really sure. And so he brought me into the bathroom. I just laid down on the floor to just kind of get everything down because I didn't know what was happening to my body. After I'd gone to do my appointment with my gynecologist, they got the blood work back and they said, in my patient portal, in menopause, any questions?
Well, hello there and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show that I think you are going to love, especially if you are a woman. Any age woman, you're going to love it. I am sitting down with one of my good girlfriends, Tamsen Fadal, and we are talking about perimenopause and menopause and a new PBS documentary that she created called The M Factor, Shredding the Silence of Menopause, available for streaming on PBS as of October 17th. She's been working on it for years. She's an award-winning journalist, menopause advocate, social media midlife mentor, she calls herself. Her social media is so you have got to go follow her on Instagram. After more than 3 decades as a news anchor, Tamsen made the bold decision to pivot her career toward women's health advocacy, which is what she's really doing. She's the best friend helping to guide women through midlife and beyond, acting as a one-stop resource for everything they need to know to live their best lives. A gifted storyteller and seasoned reporter, Tamsen provides actionable tools from dozens of world-renowned experts on everything from wellness to fashion, which she shares daily, centering the stories on women. She's so relatable. She's so honest. She's become such a close friend. She's such a loving and loyal person. But the work she is doing for women in perimenopause and menopause, the information, you are going to be blown away by this documentary. I'm so excited for her. I'm so proud of her. Again, the documentary is going to be on PBS October 17th. It's The M Factor, Shredding the Silence on Menopause. I hope that you enjoy this interview with Tamsen Fadal as much as I enjoyed interviewing my pal. I'm so excited to welcome Tamsen Fadal to the Terri Cole Show. Tamsen, thanks for coming.
Oh gosh, thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
You too. Okay, so I was just telling the audience all the things, all the stuff that you're doing. So you have a super exciting project happening, your new PBS documentary, The M Factor, Shredding the Silence on Menopause. So I just want to talk about all the friggin' things, but I want to start with the name of the documentary.
Oh.
It's so good. So The M Factor, but I love the shredding the silence because it just feels like we're not going back. Like when you're shredding something, it's like, that's that. So how did the name come about?
You know, we were looking at all sorts of things. And at first we were like, where are we going to be when this is finally released? Because that really was the question. You know, this is like years in the making. And we said, like, what is our goal? What is our goal of all of this? And I think, you know, the goal is twofold. The goal, one, of course, to educate. And two, the goal is to stop whispering about this word and stop using the word taboo in the same sentence as menopause. And so we were like, shatter the silence. And we're like, no, we're shredding it. That's really where we want to be. That's what we're hopeful for. The support and the outreach that we've had since releasing just a trailer has been enormous. And so I think women are ready to do that, which gets me excited. So I don't feel like it's us doing it. I feel like it's all of us doing it.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God. It's so amazing to watch what's happening on your social and what's happening in our circles and in our friendship circles and in the women that we know. And, you know, you really have been ahead of this curve. I mean, the fact that the documentary is coming out now is so amazing. It's so timely. It's so important. So just tell me, what was the motivation for you to do this? Because doing a documentary is a labor of love, dude. It is so much effing work. So tell us, what inspired?
Yes, it is. You know, I've done journalism my whole life, so that's what I do know how to do. I do know how to do interviews. I didn't know how to do a documentary. You know, that wasn't what I had set out to even do. I set out to tell the story and have women tell their stories. And so, you know, some of the first interviews we did were out in the middle of Times Square where people were still wearing masks, and we were trying to just kind of understand what people knew about it or what people were talking about.
Yeah.
But my partner and I, Joanne Lamarca, had gotten together. We were complaining about our own symptoms and story and misunderstanding. And
Yep.
we said, there's got to be a better way to get this information out there instead of one by one by one by one, which I think is what we've been seeing up till now. Like your mom's supposed to tell you or your big sister's supposed to tell you, but nobody else really talks about it. And so we set out to do that. And then we met some documentarians on the West Coast out of LA that have done documentaries before. So I was like, oh, that's the perfect, like combination. So the four of us set out to do this. And so we went city to city, state to state, interviewing women, talking to leading experts in the space, really trying to understand how, you could do a documentary that could be hours and hours, but we really needed to drill down so that people would have something actionable to take away with and an understanding. So they could say, if somebody walks out and says, these are the 5 things I got from it, that's kind of all, you can actually even retain. And so that's what was really important for us is like, the understanding of how we got here, the understanding of how, this impacts your brain and your sex drive and work, and then understanding, the misinformation too.
So much misinformation. And I'm so grateful that you're shining a light on that as well, because I was a victim of misinformation with the same study that everyone in the world was. And if you have a family history of breast cancer, doctors were just like, no. No to hormone replacement therapy. And the fact that it's been so debunked now, how flawed that particular study was. And you guys, if you're not familiar, can you tell us a little bit about the studies in case people are not familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely. There was in the back of everyone's mind, I think they're like, hormones are bad. Estrogen causes breast cancer. And a lot of us didn't know where that came from. We just knew that that's what we thought, and that's what it was. But there was a study in 2002, the Women's Health Initiative, that was studying other things, but looking at women and looking at cardiac and looking at hormones. And the age group in this study was not the age group of perimenopausal or menopausal women. The women were postmenopausal. The type of estrogen that they were looking at was completely different, and the results or the announcement that came from that study as a result of media was just really misinformed and was very scary if you read the headlines back then. And as a result of the study, women walked away, people walked away, media walked away that hormone therapy could cause breast cancer. We talked to a lot of doctors in the film that said, the next day, because a lot of those doctors were working during that time, that was 2002, saying, I get up in the morning, women were doing fine. They were on hormone therapy. I got up in the morning with women, my phone ringing off the hook of like, what did you put me on? Why did you do this? And, the rate of women on hormone therapy just plummeted. And so I think that as a result of that, the study, everything was halted. The study was halted and nothing was really ever done to kind of pick up things again and move it forward. So we've been sitting in this vacuum where doctors aren't being educated by it. Nurses practitioners aren't educated by it. Dentists aren't educated about it. I mean, menopause affects our teeth, our gums, our, all these things. And so when I saw a lot of that, and I've learned so much, but when I saw those initial things, I went, what in the world is going on? And I lost my mother to breast cancer. So I was one of the people that was like, oh yeah, estrogen's bad. I can never, I can't take that. My mother died of breast cancer. I mean, that's just what I always thought, and, and have really now learned that the data does not support that.
Yeah. Indeed, it does not. So can you share a little bit about your own personal journey, sort of experiencing menopause as a prominent figure in the media? Like you're someone who there's eyes on you and have been eyes on you every day for doing the news for years and years and years.
Years. It's got longer and longer. I'd been having some issues with the teleprompter. I was a reporter, and then I wound up anchoring the news in New York City, and I would go into work every day and I'd read the teleprompter for 4 hours every day. That's what I did. You see a word, you read it. And I had been having problems for a bit. And at that time, I didn't really know what it was. I thought like, oh, I'm not sleeping enough. I'm stressed out. I'm feeling insecure, whatever it is. But I'd look at a word, any word, like, much, the word right there behind you. And I'd be like, I don't know. And so I'd just skip it. And I think if you were
Mm.
listening very closely, you'd go, what did she just, maybe I misheard. That was happening more frequently. So I wasn't feeling as free to talk because I couldn't finish my sentences. I'd also had a ridiculous amount of bleeding for a while, and then it stopped, and it
Mm.
started and stopped. I have endometrium polyps. So I didn't really have what they say is one of the big signs, like 12 months, no period, because I didn't know what was a period and what was polyps.
Right.
And then I'd had a lot of anxiety, and I attributed that to a divorce that I had had in my early 40s. And so I was at work one night in November. I was having some just weirdness overall. And then I felt this like hot heat e- eruption from inside and felt nauseous and felt like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen here. I feel like I'm going to fall over. My heart was just racing out of control.
Mm.
And one of the sports anchor, I said, if I fall over, will somebody catch me? Just kind of flippant. And the sports anchor looked at me and he said, are you okay? And I said, I'm actually not really sure. And so he brought me into the bathroom. I just laid down on the floor to just kind of get everything down because I didn't know what was happening to my body. And then I proceeded to leave the station, never finished the newscast, left about 20, 30 minutes later. And then I set out to make an appointment with my primary physician. Then I went to an endocrinologist. I went to my gynecologist. I didn't know what it was at that point. So gynecologist wasn't my first thing. After I had gone to do my appointment with my gynecologist, they got the blood work back and they said, in my patient portal, in menopause, any questions? And that was kind of what was left in there. No, come back and see us. So got some thoughts of what you could do. And I think I was just like, what? I'm 49. I'm too young for menopause, which is, really the
Yep.
average age. That's sort of how that journey started. And I realized that out of all the stories I've told in the course of my life, that was the one I had not. And, so that's where it's been ever since. And it just kept continuing I couldn't stop talking about it. I couldn't stop finding experts. I couldn't stop meeting people that would be willing to share that information. And so that's kind of how my journey started into the menoverse.
Wow. It's so scary too, because the lack of information, at least in my own experience, was so scary because again, they're treating the symptom,
Yeah.
but nobody was grasping that the overall experience I was having personally was perimenopause. So I just suddenly couldn't sleep. And
Yeah.
I
Oh,
didn't
that was the
have
other
the
thing.
ones, just insomnia. Talk about something that will make you go insane.
Crazy. I've been saying this recently. I seem to see a lot of women playing whack-a-mole with their symptoms, right?
Yes.
Sleep, anxiety, gaining weight. I don't, and all these things. And that's how we're treating them all because we don't have the information. So we don't have a baseline like, go get your mammogram at this age. Like, how about do your, midlife women's screening? Where are you right now? Are you getting a regular period? Are you
Right.
sleeping? Are you gaining weight? There's a list of symptoms. That's what happened. And so I went on social media and I listed the symptoms. And all of a sudden I was hearing from all these people like, I have that. I'm doing that. I have that. And I went, oh, there's more of us than just me. And I've heard so many women with just really debilitating things happen. Women that end up in divorce, women that end up in the emergency room thinking they're having a heart attack.
Mhm.
It goes on and on and on. Young women who might go through a hysterectomy, not knowing that they're going to be thrown into full blown menopause. It was just, there's a
Mhm.
lot of different things. And so that's kind of how it started. And it has not stopped. I was
So
like, I want to reach all 1 billion women in the world.
And you're going to, no doubt. So let's talk a little bit about the symptoms the lesser known symptoms of menopause.
Yeah. Oh, there's some weird ones, right? Itchy ears. That's a big one. Burning tongue. There are some mental health parts of it where there's the moodiness, anxiety, rage. I mean, things that, you don't know about. Sleep, weight gain. Those are more standard ones if they're standard. Brain fog, which can, manifest in so many different ways where it could be not finishing a sentence or, not knowing a word retention, memorization. I think that some of the odd ones to me were and they shouldn't be now that I look in retrospect, but like teeth, like how's that a thing? But estrogen is in all parts of our body, especially our brain. And so that's where we have so many of those symptoms as a result.
So what happens to our teeth?
Well, you have a lack of estrogen, and I guess the bleeding, I'm just learning this. I just interviewed a dentist, as a matter of fact. And just because estrogen is everywhere, a number of women, a majority of women lose a tooth during menopause as a result of bleeding gums. I know. And
Wow.
I lost a tooth about 2 years ago, and I went, I've never had teeth problem in my life. What's going on?
Yeah,
He goes, oh, that's very
exactly.
common. And I went, it is. But when you lose these, and we don't lose the, estrogen like this. We're like kind of plummeted off a cliff. And I think that
Yeah.
that's how we really see it and really feel it. And so while there are so many funny ha-has about hot flashes and memes and, funny things, and there are funny things about menopause, there's
Mhm.
also some really serious ones and some really serious reasons why we need to replenish that estrogen in our body that have to do with our brain health, with our bone
Mhm.
health, another big one, and with our hearts. So
No doubt, because Oprah had shared that she was having a whole heart thing. Remember when she
yeah,
came out
hers
with
is
this like not
very
that long ago?
intense.
And she went to all these different doctors, think she was having a heart attack. And it took 5 doctors until someone was like, oh, this is menopause.
Yeah,
And
it's
you're like,
unbelievable.
she's fucking Oprah. Like if Oprah
I know.
can't get good menopause care.
Right. And I also think you don't really know who to go to because a lot of times the gynecologist that you've been going to since your 20s or 30s, if you've had that kind of relationship, often they're not all educated about this. This isn't something they really are trained with in medical school. So now you're going into somebody asking about your symptoms. They don't know, or they don't know how to treat it. They're not really educated on it. And then oftentimes it ends back up in our labs. And so then you have 2 options, or I don't know, a few, but 2 options. Go to the internet and try to figure it out, which, yikes. That's not really how you want to
Right.
do that. And 2, really go and find a doctor that's educated in this. And then we ask women to put that onus on themselves while they can't think, haven't slept, feel terrible, don't know who they are anymore. And now we have to go fix that problem. So I think that's where I really got outraged by that part of the system, and seeing so many of these pillars that have to be fixed. It's like, what comes first? We need research.
Yep.
We need to educate doctors. We need to teach women. We need to understand, how to treat these symptoms. What if you can't do hormone therapy because you have had breast cancer or because you've had a history of a stroke? What if you can't do that? What's the other option? So I
Right.
think that that's where I look at a lot of need in this.
But
this
when
area.
Tam, when you look at what you're doing and what you're doing with the M factor is you're removing the stigma. You're normalizing. I mean, I'm obsessed with your social media, so is everybody, but where the normalization of the experiences that we're having. And I think it was from something you posted that I realized my frozen shoulder was
Oh,
a
yeah.
part of menopause.
Yeah.
And
But it's not.
runny nose.
Right.
How annoying to you wonder why old people always have
I can't believe you're
tissues.
saying that. I know.
It's
I
so
know.
annoying.
Well, it's so funny. I used to, in another market, used to anchor, and the anchor that was before me, she always had Kleenex underneath the pillow on the chair. And I'm like, oh, why does she always have a runny nose? And now I'm like, oh, I'm her. I totally get it now. I used to think did she always have a cold? And that wasn't it at all.
Not at all. So what did you find when you guys started to be like, all right, this is like a thing and we're going to do it? How did you find the women and the doctors who are featured in the M Factor?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think we could do 10 of these films. I mean, some of them were, leading voices that I've met over the years in the space. Others were people within their profession that were just really incredibly credentialed or working inside of either, hospitals or schools. And so that was important to us to do 2 things, to make sure we get all across the country because there's different information, different places, and to make sure that we had a wide variety of the different topics. So we divided the film up into what we call chapters. And so one was obviously hormone therapy to really understand where it came from. Then there is sex, because sex is a huge part of it. Painful sex, no libido, not understanding why it hurts so badly. All that is huge. And that has so many ripple effects, brain or ripple effects, understanding how race plays a part, understanding how people are dismissed by doctors. And then finally, really wrapping it up with the workplace and understanding what we need to do moving forward. Because there are initiatives in a lot of these different areas, but to really understand what it's going to take to get that done is a big thing. And then we also really wanted to go into some of the other lifestyle changes because it's hard to, supplements are such an area that there's a lot of question about with regard to how much you need, what you need, is it going to work?
Right.
What does it do
Quality.
compared to hormone therapy? So it's important to us to outline hormones and not say we're for this or for that, but here are the facts. And that's
Yep.
what I have always loved doing as a journalist more than having opinions is just the facts. And so it spoke to me very well of understanding that, but it was important to pick people that had those leading voices in the space, pick people that might have new information or research, and then understanding what we just don't know about any misinformation and trying to clear that up.
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's like when you think about it, it seems like a heavy lift, right? There's so many areas.
There are.
But the lightness that the fact that you have so many of the leading experts in the one film that everyone's going to be able to, October 17th, PBS, you guys, it's for you, right? You literally do not have to suffer. You do not have to look at Tamsen and her crew did all the work for you. So you're going to get all this information. But I feel like, you ended up with specialists who were already sort of excited, or maybe they were like a little island, and like nobody in their practice gave a but them about menopause. Did you find different scenarios?
A lot of different ones. It's interesting because when you talk to people who are at the universities or at the medical hospital or research hospitals, there was nobody running in there with a microphone to talk to them. And then there's doctors that have practiced for 30, 40 years that were like one-on-one with the patients. And finally now there's a platform that they can speak to. And I think that that's what they probably have been missing for a long time. It's almost like they were shouting into a closet and trying to like, can somebody hear me? Because they've been trying to educate women, and they have to also educate themselves at the same time. And I think that that's where the difficulty is with all of it, is that I'm going into my doctor now. My doctor, I've learned all that, today's problem. I've learned all this stuff, and now they're going in there, the doctor saying like, what do you know? Do you have these answers? So it's a good and bad thing, right? It's a great thing because you're going to find out whether your doctor is educated. It's a difficult thing when you find out maybe you know more than your doctor about this topic.
Yeah.
But I'd rather us be there so then we can start educating at the next level and the next level versus say like, I don't know, we're going to wait 20 more years and hope we can get another study up and running, because who's that going to help? That's going to help somebody way down the line. We have 1 billion women globally today that are in this place that we need to help too. So,
and such a small percentage are on hormone replacement therapy right now. The last statistic I read, and you would know better than me, but the last statistic I read was 6%.
Yeah, it's really small. I think Menopause Society just came out with the up to date, and it's just minuscule amount. So that means that 94+% are looking for other alternatives to kind of treat their symptoms. And these are also women that are in the workplace right now. They're working, they're trying to figure it all out. They're, dealing with all sorts of things, because perimenopause starts 7+ years before you hit menopause. So those are the really tough times. Those are the times you're in your career, advancing in your career, raising your children, dealing with empty nest, dealing with older parents, working on your, what you want to do. I always call it like your next. Like, I think a lot of people are thinking at that point in midlife, like, what's my next? And so I find it to be such an unfair time. Like, couldn't we deal with this when everything was going great in our 20s? But I think that the promising thing for me, and, I interviewed Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who's just an incredible neuroscientist who has studied women's brains for such a long time. The happiness curve on the other side of it is something to really be hopeful for. So we often see women that, are past, get past some of those big symptoms and are just powerful and bold and sexy and great. So that's exciting. That's exciting.
It's funny. I feel myself being on the other side, because I've been through menopause for a number of years now, and I've been on hormone replacement therapy for about 5 years. And I just turned 60 last March, and I feel sexier and more alive and more enlivened in my life than ever before, honestly. So I do know that, and listen, like you always say, hey, you have to figure out what's right for you. But
100%.
What the M Factor is doing is it's creating options, like viable options, so that it's not, because it is overwhelming to try to figure all this out alone. Right now we're together. Now there's a whole group of us, because it's something that we maintain, right? Because I'm on hormone replacement therapy, but I do all the other stuff too, for bone health and the supplements, all of it, all the things. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, from your perspective and all this info that you now, Tamsen, have in your brain, what do you think that women need to know about menopause and how it affects relationships and sex drive, because this is something that I really see in my practice.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you see it. I think it's interesting. I got married a second time when I was 50 years old. So, I said, oh my gosh, I was a menopausal bride. Like I was dating my husband for a while. I was like, hey, and I was the cool girl. And then all of a sudden I'm like, nope. Thanks anyway. And so, on our honeymoon, I was like, what happens? I'm sure he talk about a bait and switch. He's like, what happened? But I do see that for a number of reasons. I think that we have at that point are trying to figure out who we are again, right? We're trying to sort it all out, sort the physical symptoms out, but there's a lot of the mental symptoms that come with that, whether we're talking about the brain fog or the mood or the rage or anxiety or any of those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the physical part of sex, feeling uncomfortable. Lack of estrogen means that you are dry. It means that you have, you just don't feel it. And then there's a lack of libido on top of that. So, I did go on hormone therapy, and then I wound up adding testosterone to it because I went back to the doctor and I'm like, I'm on hormone therapy, but I still don't. I have no libido. I'm not I don't know what's going on. Is it mental? Is it physical? What is it? And so, so I think that there's a lot that plays into that. And I often say this, they have this phrase called gray divorces. I think AARP put this phrase together a long time ago. I'm like, oh, I hate that word. But,
right.
You do see a lot of divorces at this time in life because we're trying to figure things out. And whether a partner doesn't understand or isn't willing to understand or doesn't know they have to understand, there's a lot of confusion within that relationship, right? So I do think that we have, at some point after we've educated and talked to as many women as possible, probably simultaneously need to bring the men into this journey too, or partners into this journey too, because otherwise, if you don't have that understanding, it makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think it can feel very personal. Like my experience of it, because I was having the lack of libido before I really understood what was going on. And I knew it wasn't, my feelings for Vic hadn't changed, right? I knew it. Yeah. I was like, this guy is still totally interesting to me.
Yeah.
I'm just not, it's not like I don't want to have sex with Vic. I don't want to have sex with anybody, not even myself.
Oh, totally. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's a weird thing to come from being this sexual being when you're younger or even in your 30s, early 40s, and all of a sudden you're like, what? Oh, it's not you. It's literally not you. It's me. And so I think that's hard, but not everybody believes that or understands that as a partner. It's very hard to explain it. And so I do think there's a lot there to unpack within relationships. And I think it's a huge part of this. I am hopeful about a few things though. I was at an event and I had a guy run up to me. He had heard me talking about it and he goes, I just want to let you know that my wife is suffering through this and I want to help her. What can I do to help her now? What can I do right away to help her? And I've had more than one person do that. So that feels really encouraging to me. Really encouraging.
And part of the getting away from all the control as high functioning codependents is letting your partner in on what's happening. Once you understand it, for me, I didn't say anything to Vic about what I was going through because I didn't understand. And I didn't want to hurt his feelings. It's like your stereotypical thing. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I didn't want to reject him. But I also was like, no, I don't know that I can make myself until the hormone replacement, which of course, as soon as I was started replacing hormones, I was way better and felt good again. And it didn't last, but I also added testosterone.
Yeah. I did too. I'm really happy I did.
Yeah, me too. So how do you think men can be supportive partners during this midlife transition for women?
Look, I don't think it's hard for a man to know how old their wife is and to understand that's probably going to happen around this time in early 40s and to be aware of it and be understanding of it and understand that, it's not something to do with them, hopefully, most likely, or partners in general. I think that it's incumbent on all of us as the partner that's going through it or the one that's, trying to understand it, to be aware of this time in life. And this is probably going to be what's going on. It has to be that open dialogue. It has to be on both partners, because if not, it's just everybody's going around with their own thoughts and feelings, right? Like, oh gosh, here's what I think that they mean. Here's what I think is going on there. Here's what I'm assuming is happening. And then that's when we fall into those problems.
Indeed. All right. So what is your hope for the M factor, right? How do you want it to influence the healthcare system and the public perception of menopause?
Yeah, I hope that, we really do shred that silence. I hope that it becomes something that is not a stigma and a taboo topic. I hope that workplaces get involved in understanding the conversation and never use it against women. And I guess
Mm,
I really overall hope that women feel like they're not alone in this and that there are some solutions and some answers, because I think that that's the biggest problem I see, that women feel like there's nobody there listening and they don't know who they are anymore. And once they get control of that, gosh, they feel
yeah,
so different, because I've talked to them on both sides of it, and it's a pretty beautiful thing to see.
amazing. So tell people where can they watch The M Factor?
Yes. Oh, on PBS, starting October 17th. It'll be in different cities. It's at different times, but it will be up on pbs.org streaming on the 17th. And then if they're interested in hosting a screening in their own, in their own community, they can go to the mfactorfilm.com and fill out a form. And people are doing screenings all over the country right now.
Oh,
So it's
I'm
exciting.
super doing one of those. All
Oh,
right, you
good.
guys, all the information is going to be in the show notes. Tamsen, thank you so much for doing this really important work. And you guys, if you're not following Tamsen on Instagram, you must be. This is literally like the only place you need to go to learn everything you need to learn about perimenopause and menopause. And of course, watch the movie. But thank you for doing this incredibly important work. Literally, Tam, you're changing lives. You are.
As are you. As are you. So grateful too.
Indeed. Indeed. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Terry.